All right. In the IR, we have looked at declarations, and accordingly we looked at types. In that, we looked at specifically array expressions. As far as scalars are concerned, usually on the stack, we just need to know the type of that particular variable and accordingly change the offset, and then that offset gets used in place of the variable which gets used throughout the program. But in case of arrays, we need to worry about the type of the array, especially its dimensions, and those dimensions accordingly decide what memory location we are going to access. Moving forward, we have other control structures like conditionals, loops, and then there are, within that we need to worry about Boolean expressions as well as jumps. So that is what we are going to look at now. So there are lots of different kinds of Boolean expressions. For example, I can have or, and, not, parenthesized expression, and then there are relational operations, rel of e, or the Boolean expression could directly be true or false depending upon the language. So just a quick question of OR operation in this particular grammar and in general. The question is, what is the associativity of or in this grammar as well as in reality? Okay, so people are saying left. Right. So I have not specified the associativity at all, and that means that you can have two expression trees corresponding to OR and therefore it is ambiguous. This is very similar to we had expressions where we had not specified. I mean, E plus E and E star E, both of them were in the same order, and therefore the precedence was not encoded, as well as associativity was not encoded. You recall different kinds of expressions that we had written, including towards the end left factoring, left recursion, etc. Right. So it is ambiguous here. I have not specified associativity. What happens in ANSI C, I mean, or C? What should be the associativity of OR? Right. So it should be a left associative. In fact, it is a little more stricter than left associative. I mean, definitely left associative, but the short circuiting also happens. So the B1 or B2, we should not be allowed to even execute B2 if B1 turns out to be true. So this is something which we have to be careful about, and that's what we will have to encode. Right? What is the precedence of OR over AND? I mean, which one has higher precedence? AND greater than OR? Sure. So that is what we also need to encode, which is not encoded in the current grammar. Right? So either we need to change the grammar or have more actions associated where the action is going to take care of the precedence as well as associativity. All right. So this is what I was talking about, that we would like to optimize the evaluation of OR and that gets done using the short circuiting. So we say that x less than 10 and y less than 20, if this is the expression, and x less than 10 turns out to be false, then y less than 20 doesn't even get executed. And if this short circuiting is supported in the language semantics mention that this short circuiting must be there, then the language implementation must adhere to it. And you might see that this particular expression doesn't really cause the trouble whether we evaluate y less than 20 or not, but in general it can cause a trouble. Can somebody write a small C program to find out if C uses short circuiting or not? Right. So how can an expression be using side effects? So to know if E1 and E2 or E1 or E2, these have side effects. That is, the right hand side expression is not evaluated at all. It needs to have some effect which is not getting executed when you have short circuiting in place. Right? Okay, so there are lots of different answers. Array out of bounds can be done. For example, I less than n and a of I something something. Right? So if I is actually n or more, then a of I is going to be seg faulting, but that doesn't happen because of short circuiting. Right? Similarly, yeah, so that's what Arnav has written. Shrisha has written increment decrement operation. So plus plus I. So I less. So for example, in our program, x less than 10 and plus plus y less than 20. Now, if this plus plus y less than 20 doesn't happen because x less than 10 is false, then we will see the value of y as you print it inside the if block to be the previous value of y rather than the incremented value, and so on. There are other side effects which you can create. And in fact, we use them in our programs, like Arnav has mentioned I less than I, similarly using pointers, etc. So the point here is that the language design or the language semantics do not keep it optional for the short circuiting to be supported. And it's very difficult to keep it optional if it has side effects, because then different implementations might give different answers. If things would have been really read-only, things would have been still okay, but then typically you have, for example, y less than 20 could be a function call. And that function call can do arbitrary things. For example, it can have a printf. And therefore, it becomes a little difficult for the implementation to adhere to the semantics if these are short circuiting semantics are kept optional. So these have to be enforced in the implementation. Of course, there are languages where there is no short circuiting. All the expressions get evaluated, and then everything, all the effects are in place before the execution happens. But many times in which order the expression is going to get evaluated, that might be left unspecified. It's not necessarily that will happen from left to right, or that all the expressions will get evaluated. For example, if this is function call f of y less than 20, then whether f of y is going to get evaluated just before the after x less than 10 is done, or before any of these conditions are satisfied, right? So that also needs to be specified in some way, right? Typically languages will specify that because that defines a sequential order in which the program gets executed. Of course, the compiler is allowed to perform optimizations based on whatever is feasible. However, those semantics are important, right? And more often than not, these semantics actually get enforced rather than left optional. Right. So, for example, another example is that using pointers, we can have while p and then p arrow next. Right. So, this is something which we use routinely, and that works because of short circuiting. Otherwise, this is not bound to work. Right. Similarly, others, as you guys have suggested. All right. So, let's come back to the control expression. So, we have this some sort of statement where it uses some relational operator x less than 100, and there is or, and then there is and we would like to give precedence to and over or, as well as generate code corresponding to this such that if the condition is satisfied, then we want to set x equal to 0. Right? So I would like you to think about using So let's assume that there is some statement which is if true and if false, right? So the statements are if true or if false. So these statements are available with us, right? Which has if true some b1, then jump or go to let's say some label L1, right? So like this, some condition or some instruction is available with us in the intermediate representation. If such a condition is, such an instruction is available, can you write down the intermediate representation of this particular example that I have given? And I leave it to you to write it either with short circuiting or without short circuiting, right? Whichever you prefer, you can write it. We'll see both of them, but please spend some time writing down the IR corresponding to this, assuming that you have this if true or and if false instructions. Anybody has any questions in this classwork? Okay, so let's discuss this. First, we will do without short circuiting. What this means is that we are going to kind of evaluate all of these expressions: x less than 100, x greater than 200, and x not equal to y. It depends upon the semantics of the language in which order these should be evaluated. Order meaning where these should be evaluated, right? What we'll do is since there are no side effects, we'll evaluate them all together, which means that I can have, let's say, some expression b1, which means x less than 100, then b2 x greater than 200, and b3 as x not equal to y. And then we'll say that if true b1, right? So if true x less than 100, then I'm going to do what? Then as soon as this is true, since this is without whether it is without short circuiting or with short circuiting, I need to go to x equal to 0, which means that I need to have a label at which x equal to 0 gets executed, right? And if that is false, that is if b1 is false, then I need to look at if true x greater than 200. So this will be if false x, if false b1, then I'm going to jump to evaluation of, not evaluation of, checking of b2 and b3, right? So that is what we are going to write. So we have these b1, b2, b3. These are the three instructions in 3 address code form. If b1 is true, then I need to start executing x equal to 0, and therefore I need to jump to L2. Then I'm going to evaluate if b1 is false, then I'm going to go to evaluation of, not evaluation of, checking the condition b2. So b2, if it turns out to be false, then this whole condition is false, and therefore I should not be executing x equal to 0, so I need to come out, that is L3. So if false B2, then go to L3, if false B3, then go to L3. Otherwise there is a fall through to L2 which evaluates x equal to 0, which means that both B2 and B3 are true, right, assuming that B1 is false. Yeah, so I think some of you have written the if true x less than 100 jump, if true x less than 100, then jump some, if false x greater than 200 jump and, correct, if false x not equal to y jump and, correct. If true expression 1 jump L1, correct. If false expression 2 jump, okay guys, okay. So this you have written exactly in the same manner as we discussed. It's possible that sometimes you might do it in a different way. For example, your IR generator might always use the instruction if true, right? Instead of using if true, combination of if true and if false, you might always use if true or always use if false. That is okay. Sometimes you might reverse the condition not of x less than 100, right? So that is also another possibility. It doesn't matter. Your code will change a little. Sometimes it might not be optimal if you use a combination of if true and if false, because for example, you saw that if when you are using or, using if true turns out to be better. When you are using and, if false turns out to be better, because you are able to take the decision upright or early on. So it's possible that if you just use one of the types of the instructions, then your code might not be optimal, but that can be taken care of in the later pass of optimization. So that is also okay. Right? In fact, you can try writing all of this code just using if true, and you can see how the code would look like. So this was without short circuiting. Any questions on this one? Okay, if that is the case, it will be a good time to write down with short circuiting how the code will change. So with short circuiting, we should not evaluate this x greater than 200 if x less than 100 is true, right? Which means the conditional check of if true B1 needs to move before evaluation of B2, before assignment to B2. So that's what you should do. The code me and Anna wrote is without short circuiting. Oh, you guys wrote it with short circuiting? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed that. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, that is correct, because the condition will not get evaluated. Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Sure. Yeah. So if expression 1, 2, 3 are evaluated before all of these, then it becomes without short circuiting. But if expression 1, 2, 3 are replacing those conditions, that is expression 1 is same as x less than 100, then it becomes with short circuiting. Okay, good. Yeah, I missed that. Thanks for pointing it out. Okay, so then I'll wait for a few seconds for others to try out what different kind of instructions you get, and then we'll discuss. So whether without or with short circuiting, one expression is always having the guarantee of getting evaluated, and that is the typically the leftmost expression in this Boolean expression. For example, in this case, x less than 100, this will always be executed. Okay, so the one that I have written with short circuiting looks like this, where the conditions are the statements are the same. I have just reordered them. So here B1 evaluation happens, then there is a condition of B1, and depending upon that I take a call. Then there is B2 and if false, and then there is B3 and if false. Right? The rest of it remains the same. Right? And you can convince yourself that this is going to not evaluate x greater than 200 if B1 turns out to be true. Any questions so far? All right. So I'll move ahead from here. So so this was just an example of how the Boolean expression short circuiting is going to happen. Now let's actually start generating IR for different kinds of expressions. In this case, the first expression we are talking about is B or B, which means using the OR operator. We are going to discuss about OR, and then I'll ask you to write down IR corresponding to other constructs, let's say ampersand, not, etc. So what all we have are essentially, so there is, what are the attributes of B that are available with us? Can somebody recall? So what are the attributes with the Boolean expression B that we usually use, or at least we had used when we discussed about the while loop? Yes, labels is definitely one thing that's definitely required, but there are some attributes that we are using. What are the names of those attributes? So those names refer to these labels. Next, okay. Next is there for all the statements. Specifically for Booleans, we use the attributes true and false, which means that if it is true, then you need to go to this label, which is typically inside the if block or while block. If it is false, then it has to go to the next statement, right, or the next label. All right, so we'll use those true and false. So we'll assume in this case, as well as there is another attribute which is going to be code. So we need to build b.code. Right? We need to build b.code. b1.code and b2.code are available. Note that b1 and b2 are just names, but those are essentially b's. And I'm assuming here that associativity precedence, everything is taken care of in a separate manner, because it makes our life a little easy when we use this simple grammar. So b1.code, b2.code are available. We have to build b.code. However, b1.true and b1.false are not available, because I don't know, while I am building b1 bottom up, what are the values of where I should go to when I am when b1 is true or when b1 is false, right? Because that statement is going to come later. So if b1 or b2, then s1, else s2. If this is the kind of statement, then that s1 and s2 has not yet been reduced to, right? I am still when I am doing b1 or b2, and therefore b1.true and b1.false are not available. Similarly for b2, b2.true and b2.false are not available. Those are going to be available either with b now, right, as part of the complete if statement or while statement, or it is still under preparation. For example, this statement could be b or b and some b3, right? So therefore, we'll assume that in some sense b.true and b.false are going to be available with us, right? Either now or this is going to be filled up later, but definitely b1.true and b2.true, similarly b1.false and b2.false are not available. Okay, so that's what I'm mentioning here. So the attributes are true, false, and code. b1.code, b2.code are available, but b.true and B dot true and B dot false, which is the left hand side production, that is the head of the production, those are available in some sense, which need to be pushed inside B1 and B2 as inherited attributes. Right? So that is what we are going to for now assume. Whether B dot true and B dot false are going to be available or not, this is going to be decided by what context B is part of. If it is part of some if statement, if B then S1, then that if statement is going to push where that S1 is, right, into B, right? So as an inherited attribute before evaluating, before reduction of B, right? So that is what we'll assume. Okay, so accordingly our IR generation is going to, again we are going to use that gen statement in some way. Alternatively, we can just say B dot code equal to something. Right? So that is in some sense assuming that I am going to use a gen code. So let's focus first on this part, which is the B dot code, that is the code that we are generating. That says that I am going to evaluate B1, then there is a conditional state, then there is a label, and then there is B2 dot code. Right? So that seems to be reasonable, that there is B1's code, then there is a label, and then there B2's code, because I want to jump to evaluation of B2 depending upon whether B1 is true or not. Now let's focus on what are the four true and false statements of true and false attributes of B1 and B2. If B1 is true, then we just want to go to whatever is the label corresponding to B dot true. So B1 dot true is going to be B dot true. Then I don't need to worry about evaluation of B2. B1 dot false is going to generate a new label. So if B1 is false, then I need to jump to evaluation of B2. That I am going to say is this label that I have shown here. Right? So that I am creating a new label corresponding to evaluation of B2. This means that according to short circuiting, if B1 is true, I don't need to evaluate B2, and that is what I just go to B dot true, which means that if there is a statement S here, then I just need to go from, if B1 is true, I just need to go here. Right? That is what it means. B2 dot, so this is about B1. Let's come to B2 statements. If B2 is true, then definitely I need to execute statement S, irrespective of whether B1 was true or not. But because of short circuiting, we know that B1 was false if I have to come to B2. Right? So B2 dot true is same as B dot true. What is B dot true? That is coming as an input, right? That is coming as an inherited attribute. And B dot true is again going to be a label, which is just going to be pointing to wherever that statement is, right? Which we don't know currently, because as I said, this could be B1 or B2 and B3, right? So that and etc. is going to be coming in a repeated application of this Boolean condition. And B2 dot false, if it turns out that B2 is false and you have reached here, that means B1 was false as well as B2 was false, then you need to go to, then that means that B is totally false, and you need to go to the else part. Right? It need not be else part, but it could be some place which starts evaluating another Boolean condition, or it might be some place where another statement S2 needs to be executed. So whatever that is given to us using B dot false, and that becomes the assignment to B2 dot false. Anybody has any questions on this? Anybody wants me to repeat any of the assignments? Okay. So then I'll ask you to write about the AND, right? With short circuiting. Right? So please write down the IR corresponding to that, or SDT corresponding to that. Again, you can assume that B dot true, B dot false are given to you. B1 dot code, B2 dot code are given to you. Right? Using that, you have to set up B1 dot true, B2 dot true, and B1 dot false, B2 dot false, as well as B dot code. I'll wait for a few more seconds. Yeah. All right. So whatever Raghu and Sarthak have written, those seem to be correct statements with modification that is suggested by Sarthak. Um, so essentially what we need to do is that if B1 is false, then we know that all of this is false, and therefore we need to go to B dot false, right? Which means that B1 dot false is going to be equal to B dot false. So that is the first part. If B1 is true, then we need to go for the evaluation of B2. And therefore we are going to require some jumping to that label. So we'll have B1 dot code, then there is a new label corresponding to B1 dot true, and then there will be evaluation of B2, which is B2 dot code, right? So that is going to be B dot code in the end. So if B1 dot true happens, we would like to go to that label B1 dot true. Okay, so that is our new label part. Then let's talk about B2 dot true and B2 dot false. B2 dot true, as soon as that happens, we know that B1 is already true and B2 is true, and therefore it should go to B dot true. So B2 dot true becomes B dot true. If B2 is false, irrespective of what was the value of B1, since B2 is false, B becomes false, and therefore B2 dot false becomes B dot false. So that is what are the answers of Raghu and Sarthak. Anybody has any questions or concerns or comments? Okay, so that is what we have written here. Right. So yeah, I think we have explained this here, so we'll not go into this. Let's write about the negation of B1. This should be relatively simpler, but might be a little tricky for some of you. Please write this down. Kuldeep, could you please write down what your answer is about this B deriving not of B1? Kuldeep, you are there? Okay, B1 dot false equal to B dot true and B1 dot true equal to B dot false. So that seems to be taking care of that. We already have, I mean, we need to set up B1 dot true and B1 dot false. and that can be derived from b dot true and b dot false. There is one more attribute that we need to worry about. What is that, Kuldeep? So the other attribute is code. Right? That is the IR that we are generating. Yeah, b dot code. So how will you set up b dot code? This part is a little tricky for some of us to understand, but once we explain it, hopefully it will become clear. So how should we set up b dot code? Kuldeep? So in this case, the inputs that we have are b dot true, b dot false, and b1 dot code. So using b1 dot code, we have to set up b dot code. There is no new label that is required to be created here. So we have set up b1 dot true, b1 dot false, and now we need to set up b dot code. Uh, so Pawan Kumar, do you want to say anything about what should be the b dot code value? Okay, so we might get tempted to think that since this is a negation, one possibility might be we can say b dot code equal to, let's say some not instruction is there, and that not of b dot code, b1 dot code, right? So that could be one way in which we can think about it. However, as soon as we do that, since we have reversed the roles of b1 dot false with respect to b dot true, with respect to b, uh, yeah, so as soon as since we have reversed this and we say that b dot code is not of b1 dot code, it is going to create a negation of negation, and that will turn out to be that b and b1 are going to operate in the same manner. But that is definitely not the case, as the statement says that b equal to not of b1, and since we have reversed b1 dot false and b1 dot true with respect to b, you can have b dot code as b1 dot code, as Sarthak and Venu Madhav Reddy have mentioned. Right? So we'll have b1 dot false is b dot true, b1 dot true is b dot false, and b dot code is going to be same as b1 dot code. Right? So that will make sure that it becomes a negation. The labels that it will jump to are going to be opposite to. For example, if there is if b then s1, else s2. So what we are saying now, if not of b then s2, else s1. So that becomes equivalent to this. Right? So that is what we will do. Right? So that is what has been shown here. Okay, so let's move further. Anybody has any questions on this one? Kuldeep, Pawan Kumar, is this clear? Okay, so let's do for the relational operators. Let's say some expression E1, relational operator E2. You have to think about what all will be available. Now, there is nothing like E1 dot true and E1 dot false because E1 is a logical expression. So definitely B dot true, B dot false exists. So now how will you take care of that using E1 and E2? Please think about it and see if you can write the code corresponding to it. Okay, so here also it should not be very difficult. It's just going to directly generate code using E1 and E2. So it's just going to evaluate E1. It's just going to evaluate E2, right? Because there is no short circuiting here. There is a relational operation. And then I'm going to generate the code which says that if E1 dot address relational operator E2 dot address, then go to B dot true. Right? So if E1 relop E2, then go to B dot true or jump B dot true. Otherwise, go to B dot false. Right. So that is the statement that is going to get generated, and therefore I am using gen as the function here, which generates that particular thing. So relop could be one of those 6 operators that we studied, that we saw on the previous slide. Okay, so that is kind of straightforward. There is nothing complicated here. How about B deriving true, assuming that such a statement exists? What will be the code that you will generate? So in this case, for example, if B then S, if this is the kind of statement and that B turns out to be true, if true then S1, right? So if that is the kind of statement that you have, what will be the code that you will generate? Go to B dot true, B dot code equal to gen go to B dot true, jump B dot true. Right. So we need to have the gen statement there, and that because we are setting up B dot code, therefore that go to is going to come to our rescue. So go to B dot true is going to be the generated code. All right. Similarly for B dot false, where we are just going to say that gen of go to of B dot false, right? So that is going to be our statement that we will generate. Okay, so any questions so far? All right, so we'll move ahead. So let's come back to our SDD that we had for the while loop, and we had some discussion about that using what kind of statements we require, the labels, etc. Now, having seen it for the various Boolean conditions. Now we should be able to write it, or at least recall what we had written, right? So let's look at that. So we had s.next and s.code are the attributes for s, and s1 dot code is available, c dot code is available to us, and we have s dot next is going to be available to us, but s dot code is the one that we need to generate, right? So s dot code, which is okay, so sorry. So s dot next is available and c dot code is available, right? This s dot code I should have written properly, but s1 dot code is also available with us, right? However, s dot code is the one that we need to set up. Similarly, we need to set up c dot true and c dot false, because those are going to be now available to us when we look at it as part of the while statement. So c dot true is going to point to whatever is s1, right? C dot true should jump to S1, C dot false should jump to S dot next, right? So that is what we want to set up. Of course, we'll have to set up some sort of label there. Yeah, so with this information, can you recall what the SDD for while is going to be with whatever we have discussed so far? Okay, in the interest of time, I'll just show it here. So let's look at s dot code first. So I have two labels. One is L1, which says that I need to go back from after S1, I need to go back and evaluate C. So I need a jump after S1, and that is going to be L1 label, right? Then I'm going to evaluate C's code. Then I have a jump to S1, because depending upon if C turns out to be true or false, I need a jump to S1's code. So that is another label which I have. Alternatively, you can use a fall through. So that is also another possibility. And finally, after S1 is evaluated, I need to go back and evaluate C again. Therefore, there is go to L1. Right. So this part is okay. So I have generation of these two labels. S1 dot next. Right. So this S1 dot next is going to be L1. That is decided by this go to L1 also. And then I have to set up these two, C dot false and C dot true. C dot false is going to be S dot next. So as soon as C is false, I need to come out of the while loop. And C dot true is going to be the second label, which is going to be L2. Right? So this seems to be reasonable, and it fills up all the attributes that we require. Right? Anybody has any questions on this? Okay, so we'll stop here, and we'll meet in the next class. See you.